The sleek Confederation diplomatic vessel, the Celestial Envoy, descended through Earth's atmosphere with graceful precision. Its pearlescent hull caught the afternoon sunlight as it settled onto the specially constructed landing pad outside the United Nations Interstellar Reception Center in Geneva. Earth had prepared for this moment for nearly a decade. First contact had been established through deep space transmissions, followed by years of careful communication. Now, the Galactic Confederation's diplomatic delegation would finally set foot on human soil. Commander Sharila adjusted her environmental suit's settings one final time. As mission leader and senior xenobiologist for the Confederation, she had studied human physiology extensively, but experiencing Earth's atmosphere firsthand still concerned her. The nitrogen-oxygen mixture seemed dangerously reactive. Atmospheric composition, stabilized within your parameters, Commander, her assistant Trelna confirmed. Though I must note again that the humans maintain their habitats at oxygen levels that would be considered hazardous on most Confederation worlds. Just another peculiarity to document, Sharila replied, watching through the view screen as the human welcoming committee assembled. Remember, we observe first, evaluate later. The reception proceeded according to carefully negotiated protocols. Human representatives from 17 nations greeted the 12-member delegation representing the Confederation's diverse species. Formal introductions were exchanged, symbolic gifts presented, and carefully prepared speeches delivered without incident. Then came the welcoming banquet, the first major deviation from the expected. They call this a buffet-style reception, Trelna whispered, consulting her cultural briefing materials. Apparently, humans prefer selecting their own food combinations rather than receiving predetermined nutritionally balanced portions. Commander Sharila observed with growing fascination as humans filled their plates with astonishing variety. Items in different colors, textures, and, according to her suit's sensors, wildly different chemical compositions. Most shocking was that each human appeared to select entirely different combinations. Ambassador Chen has chosen items derived from plant matter, animal proteins, fungi, and are those bacterial cultures, she whispered to Dr. Zilox, the delegation's nutrition specialist. Dr. Zilox's eye membranes fluttered in distress. Confirmed. The substance labeled blue cheese contains deliberately cultivated microorganisms. They consume it while the decomposition is actively in progress. The Confederation delegates, each with their specialized diets, politely accepted single-ingredient offerings prepared specifically to match their physiological requirements. Meanwhile, the humans consumed their bewildering combinations with evident enjoyment. The true shock came during the beverage service. Secretary General Okafor raised her glass. To new friendships among the stars, she announced, as the human delegates sipped from their glasses. They're consuming ethanol. Trelna gasped, her translator unit barely muffling her alarm. In concentrations that would be used as industrial solvent or antiseptic in Confederation medical facilities. Commander Sharila discreetly activated her recording devices. Note for xenobiology report. Humans deliberately ingest mild neurotoxins for pleasure. Priority research question. How can a supposedly intelligent species evolve to enjoy substances that impair cognitive function? The most junior diplomatic officer, fresh from the academy, could no longer contain himself. He approached one of the human delegates, Chef Marcus Thompson, culinary ambassador for the reception. The Confederation's science vessel, Harmonic Discovery, hung in Earth orbit like a crystalline snowflake, its transparent observation domes glittering in the sunlight. Inside the main docking bay, Captain Zor Leff watched the approaching Earth shuttle, with 8 of his 17 eyelids narrowed, a sign of intense concentration among the Nexari species. Approaching vessel contains 3 human specialists as agreed upon in the scientific exchange protocol, announced the ship's liaison officer. Their life signs appear, unusually energetic. The shuttle docked with a gentle hiss of equalizing pressure. The airlock cycled open to reveal 3 humans carrying surprisingly modest luggage for a 2-year mission. Chef Sophia Reyes stepped forward first, her confident stride immediately drawing attention. At 43, she had revolutionized molecular gastronomy on Earth by combining traditional cooking techniques with cutting-edge food science. Behind her followed Dr. Kai Wang, biochemist specializing in comparative xenodigestion, carrying both standard scientific equipment and a cushioned case containing what the manifest listed as culinary research specimens. Those would be his hot sauces, Dr. Imani Okafor explained, noticing the captain's compound eyes fixed on the case. As the expedition's culinary anthropologist, she had studied food cultures across human civilizations. Dr. Wang believes they represent humanity's unique relationship with plant defensive compounds. Captain Zorlet's translation implant processed this information with a slight delay. Your species deliberately consumes plant toxins as entertainment. As culinary exploration, Chef Reyes corrected with a warm smile. The same adaptive flexibility that helped humans survive on Earth might prove valuable in understanding the galaxy's diverse ecosystems. The humans settled into their quarters while the Harmonic Discovery broke orbit, beginning its surveying mission of 3 recently discovered habitable worlds. For the first month, the human specialists established their research routines alongside scientists from 15 Confederation species. Chef Reyes converted a small laboratory into a test kitchen, analyzing the molecular structure of ingredients from across Confederation space and creating sample dishes that might bridge biological divides. Dr. Wang cataloged the surprising similarities between certain Earth compounds and extraterrestrial biochemistry. Dr. Okafor documented how different species approached the necessity of nutrition, from the ritualistic Garvians to the utilitarian Mecter. Then came the radiation storm, undetected until the ship was enveloped in its electromagnetic embrace. Primary systems undamaged, reported Chief Engineer Kelvex as emergency lighting bathed the bridge in purple. However, the specialized food synthesizers for 9 species have suffered critical failures. Captain Zorleth absorbed this news with practiced calm, though his skin betrayed him by shifting toward anxiety purple. The Harmonic Discovery carried sufficient emergency rations for all species, but they were designed for short-term survival, not extended nutrition. With the ship's course altered by the storm, they were now 3 months from the nearest Confederation outpost. Captain called Dr. Wang through the internal communication system. We'd like to speak with you about potential alternatives to the synthesizers. When Zorleth entered the human laboratory, he found an unexpected scene. The 3 specialists had arranged samples of every food source aboard the ship, organized by molecular composition rather than species designation. Chef Reyes looked up from her analysis display, eyes bright with problem-solving energy. Captain, I believe we've identified some interesting possibilities for cross-species nutrition. The ship's mess hall had never been so crowded during standard meal distribution. Crew members from 15 different species gathered, their attention focused on the central preparation station where Chef Sophia Reyes stood confidently before vats of gray nutritional paste, the universal emergency ration that every species could technically digest, but none particularly enjoyed. As you all know, she began, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room, our specialized food synthesizers will require significant repairs. In the meantime, we face the challenge of creating palatable meals from limited supplies. Senior Nutrition Officer Peltav clicked his mandibles skeptically. The universal paste provides adequate nutrition for all aboard, even if the experience is unpleasant. Chef Reyes smiled. On Earth, we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Today, I'd like to demonstrate how human culinary techniques can transform basic nutrition into something more than adequate. She activated the cooking surface, its temperature precisely controlled. First, we'll work with the base paste allocated for Vosarian consumption. The Vosarians present, slender beings with translucent skin, shifted uncomfortably. Their paste was notorious for its bitter chemical profile, necessary for their specialized digestive system, but unpalatable to almost every other species. Chef Ray's added measured amounts of dried fungal extracts from the Botanical Research Lab, along with trace minerals, and heating the mixture to exactly 72.3 degrees Celsius. The gray paste gradually transformed, taking on a subtle golden hue and releasing an aroma that caused several species' sensory appendages to extend in surprise. The molecular structure remains compatible with Vosarian digestion, Dr. Wong confirmed, monitoring his analysis equipment. But we've neutralized the bitterness compounds and enhanced the natural umami characteristics. A brave Vosarian lieutenant stepped forward, dipped a sampling utensil into the mixture, and carefully tasted it. His chromatophores rippled with unexpected pleasure. "It tastes like the flowering algae of my homeworld's southern seas," he announced, voice tinged with emotion. "How is this possible from emergency rations?" Over the next 3 hours, Chef Ray's demonstrated similar transformations for 8 different species-based nutrition. For some, she altered textures through molecular gastronomy techniques. For others, she introduced safe aromatic compounds that enhance flavor without changing nutritional profiles. Throughout it all, Dr. Okafor documented both the culinary techniques and the social responses they generated. Most fascinating to the watching crew was how the humans themselves approached the challenge. They freely sampled modified versions of alien nutrition, making notes about which preparations humans could safely consume. "You're willing to eat food designed for other species?" asked Medical Officer Zindar, her feathered crest rising in surprise. Dr. Wong nodded while cautiously tasting a modified Gelarian protein base. "Humans evolved as opportunistic omnivores. Our ancestors survived by eating whatever was available: plants, animals, fungi, occasionally even soils for their mineral content. Our digestive systems developed extraordinary flexibility." What truly captured the crew's attention, however, was the social transformation occurring alongside the culinary one. Species that normally ate in isolation due to incompatible atmospheric or gravity requirements now gathered together, watching the food preparation process with shared curiosity. The impossible menu, as it came to be called, grew more sophisticated over the following days. Chef Reyes established a rotation of preparation techniques, ensuring no species experienced palate fatigue from repeated flavors. Dr. Wong analyzed each crew member's nutritional needs, creating personalized modifications to address specific deficiencies. Dr. Okafor organized cross-species tasting sessions where compatible foods could be shared, building unprecedented camaraderie. The distress signal pulsed weakly against the background radiation of the Cygnus sector. The harmonic discovery altered course immediately, as interstellar protocols demanded. Agricultural Research Station Abundance, Captain Zorlef read from the briefing display. Established 3 standard cycles ago to study adaptive crop cultivation. Crew complement of 42 representing 8 Confederation species. Commander Chenille, the security chief, scanned the preliminary data. Signal indicates environmental system contamination. No details on contaminant type or casualties. Dr. Wong looked up from his analysis terminal. Agricultural research stations often work with biological compounds that could become problematic if improperly contained. We should prepare for potential toxins. The harmonic discovery established orbit around the small terraformed moon where the station was located. Repeated communication attempts yielded only automated responses. Life signs detected but significantly weakened, reported the sensor specialist. Atmospheric contamination confirmed throughout all habitable sections. Captain Zorlef faced an immediate challenge. The specialized respiratory systems of most Confederation species made them particularly vulnerable to airborne contaminants. Standard protocols would require waiting for a hazardous environment team from the nearest outpost, at least 7 days away. Dr. Okafor stepped forward. "Captain, humans might have a relevant advantage here. Our homeworld contains thousands of airborne irritants and toxins that we've adapted to process. "You're suggesting humans could survive the contaminated environment?" the captain asked, multiple eye membranes blinking in surprise. "Not without effects," Dr. Wang clarified, "but we might maintain functionality long enough to identify the contaminant and potentially help survivors." After intense deliberation, Captain Zorlev authorized a human-led reconnaissance team. The three specialists entered the station wearing lightweight filtration masks rather than full environmental suits, which would have limited their dexterity. They encountered the effects immediately. "Burning sensation in mucous membranes," Dr. Wang noted, eyes watering. "Respiratory irritation consistent with capsaicinoid compounds." Chef Reyes pushed forward through the discomfort. "Like cutting ghost peppers without gloves," she observed. "Uncomfortable, but manageable." They located the first survivors in the main laboratory, three Glosarian researchers barely conscious, their sensitive tissues severely inflamed from exposure. Dr. Okafor administered emergency first aid while Dr. Wang collected atmospheric samples. "The compound resembles capsaicin, the chemical that makes earth peppers spicy, but with a modified molecular structure," he explained after quick analysis. "It appears to have been engineered to affect multiple respiratory systems." As they worked their way through the station, the humans' conditions gradually worsened. Their eyes streamed constantly, breathing became labored, and exposed skin reddened with irritation. Yet they continued functioning, locating survivors and gathering critical data. In the central hydroponics bay, they discovered the source. A new hybrid plant species designed to grow in low-light conditions had undergone unexpected mutation during its reproductive cycle, releasing capsaicinoid compounds as a defense mechanism. The station's ventilation system had distributed these compounds throughout the habitable areas. "Fascinating adaptation," Dr. Wang noted between coughing fits. The plant modified its defensive compounds based on the specific threats in its environment. Much like Earth's capsicum species evolved capsaicin to deter mammals but not birds. More importantly, Chef Reyes added, her voice hoarse, "I know how to neutralize it." The Confederation diplomatic vessel, Measured Accord, approached the neutral space station where the Mizari Collective had finally agreed to peace negotiations after 3 decades of territorial disputes. High Counselor Vrental paced the briefing room, his ceremonial robes swishing anxiously across the polished floor. "The situation is unprecedented," he explained to the assembled team. "The agricultural research station you rescued was vital to these negotiations. The Mizari believe we sabotaged it intentionally." Chef Reyes, Dr. Wang, and Dr. Okafor exchanged glances. Their successful rescue mission and neutralization of the toxin had earned them unexpected diplomatic credentials. Now, barely recovered from their ordeal, they found themselves reassigned to an even more challenging mission. "The Mizari have one non-negotiable condition for these talks," continued the High Counselor. "Their cultural traditions require a shared meal prepared by each party's own hands. Previous delegations failed because most species can't safely consume each other's biochemistry," Dr. Wang finished. "But humans might manage it." High Counselor Vrental's neck frills extended in confirmation. "Precisely. The Confederation Council believes your adaptable digestive systems might succeed where our previous attempts failed. The stakes could hardly be higher. The disputed territories included 37 developing star systems and critical hyperspace transit corridors. 3 previous negotiation attempts had collapsed during the required meal ceremony, with delegates suffering allergic reactions or digestive distress that the Mizari interpreted as deliberate insults. The human team received full briefings on Mizari biochemistry, culture, and cuisine during the 3-day journey. They learned that the Mizari evolved on a high-gravity world with intense solar radiation, developing dense muscular structures and highly efficient metabolisms. Their cuisine reflected this environment: energy-dense foods rich in proteins and complex carbohydrates, heavily spiced with compounds that would cause intestinal distress in most Confederation species. Their primary flavor enhancers contain sulfur compounds similar to those in Earth's allium family: garlic, onions, leeks. Chef Reyes noted, studying the molecular profiles. Strong but not fundamentally incompatible with human digestion. Dr. Okafor focused on the cultural significance of their meals. The shared eating ritual dates back to their earliest tribal periods. Accepting another's food demonstrated mutual trust, proving neither party had poisoned the offering. Upon arrival at the neutral station, the humans immediately began preparations in the designated culinary laboratory. Chef Reyes worked tirelessly, creating dishes that would satisfy Mizari cultural requirements while remaining safe for human consumption. Dr. Wang analyzed each ingredient at the molecular level, identifying potential problems and suggesting substitutions. Dr. Okafor ensured that presentation and serving methods respected Mizari traditions. The Mizari delegation arrived with characteristic punctuality, 12 representatives in iridescent ceremonial armor, led by Supreme Coordinator Kasvor, known throughout the sector for her uncompromising negotiation tactics. "We understand humans will represent Confederation interests at the sharing ceremony," she stated, mandibles clicking with skepticism. "Your species is unknown to us. Our intelligence suggests you are physically fragile compared to Mizari." Chef Reyes stepped forward, meeting the imposing alien's four-eyed gaze steadily. "Physical resilience takes many forms, Supreme Coordinator. We look forward to demonstrating humanity's adaptability." The ceremonial dining chamber had been prepared according to Mizari specifications. Low ambient lighting with targeted illumination for the food, atmospheric composition adjusted to Mizari preference, with slightly elevated sulfur content, and gravity increased to 1.4 Earth standard. Minor discomforts for the humans, but manageable ones. The grand auditorium of the Interspecies Culinary Institute gleamed under the soft illumination of floating light spheres. Located in what was once Geneva's International District, the newly constructed facility represented humanity's first major contribution to Confederation infrastructure. Dr. Imani Okafor stood at the presentation podium, facing an audience that included representatives from 78 spacefaring civilizations. "Welcome to the inaugural symposium on universal nutritional taxonomy," she began, her voice calm despite the historic significance of the moment. "One standard year ago, when our small team demonstrated human digestive adaptability during a diplomatic crisis, we could not have anticipated how quickly that demonstration would evolve into this unprecedented collaborative effort." Projected behind her appeared the distinctive hexagonal classification system that had become the project's visual signature, a comprehensive molecular framework for categorizing edible substances across biological boundaries. Traditional approaches to interspecies nutrition focused on separation and specialization. Dr. Okafor continued. Each species received custom-synthesized nutrition based on their unique biochemistry. This approach, while functional, reinforced biological isolation and required extensive resources for implementation. The display shifted to show the interior of a standard Confederation vessel's dining facilities. Separate synthesis units, separate consumption chambers, separate waste processing systems, all multiplied by the number of species aboard. "The human approach suggests an alternative paradigm," she explained. "Instead of perfect specialization, we propose adaptive compatibility. By understanding the fundamental molecular structures of foods across the galaxy, we can identify core nutritional building blocks that function across multiple biological systems." In the front row, Chef Sophia Reyes and Dr. Kai Wan watched with quiet pride. Their experimental work aboard the Harmonic Discovery had expanded dramatically after the successful Mizari negotiations. What began as emergency measures had evolved into revolutionary approaches to cross-species nutrition. Today, we present the first edition of the Universal Cookbook, Dr. Okafor announced as the display shifted again to show a comprehensive database interface. This living document contains over 12,000 recipes with adaptive preparation protocols. Each recipe can be modified to safely feed between 3 and 22 different species simultaneously, using the same base ingredients. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Several Confederation nutritional scientists activated their personal displays, already exploring the shared database with professional curiosity. Perhaps most significantly, Dr. Okafor continued, this approach reduces the resource requirements for interstellar vessels by approximately 67%. Ships no longer need to carry specialized nutrients for each species aboard. Instead, they can stock adaptive base components that serve multiple functions. The economic implications alone had catapulted the project from scientific curiosity to strategic priority. Confederation logistics planners had already begun implementing the first-generation protocols on newly commissioned exploratory vessels. Chef Reyes rose to join Dr. Okafor at the podium, activating the demonstration kitchen that occupied the stage's left section. Behind transparent barriers designed to accommodate various atmospheric requirements, she began preparing a seemingly simple dish. This demonstration will illustrate adaptive cuisine in practice, she explained as her hands moved with practiced precision. The base ingredients are a cellular protein matrix derived from sustainable aquaculture and complex carbohydrates harvested from vacuum-resistant fungi that grow on asteroid surfaces. Specialized cameras projected magnified views of the molecular transformation occurring as Chef Reyes applied different preparation techniques to portions of the same base ingredients. The emergency session of the Confederation Security Council convened in the orbital chamber above New Singapore. Holographic displays showed spreading zones of red across star charts, 17 worlds affected in just 6 standard days, with projections suggesting the number would triple within a week. High Chancellor Vexmore's voice carried the weight of crisis. The pathogen targets digestive and metabolic systems across multiple species simultaneously. Our medical teams report it appears engineered to circumvent standard immunological responses. Dr. Kai Wang studied the molecular profile displayed in the chamber center, a complex structure that shifted and reconfigured itself under simulated immune response. The Council had summoned the human team urgently when conventional containment measures failed. The structure contains compounds found in common foodstuffs across multiple planetary ecosystems, he observed. It essentially disguises itself as nutrients until it reaches specific organs. Security Director Krelnar's exoskeleton clicked with agitation. Conventional wisdom held that creating a cross-species pathogen was biologically impossible due to fundamental biochemical differences. Yet here we are. Chef Sophia Rees had been unusually quiet, studying the molecular simulations with intense focus. The attack vector matches our work, she finally said, her voice tight with concern. They've weaponized the research from the Universal Cookbook, turned our understanding of cross-species nutrition against us. The silence that followed carried accusation, but Dr. Imani Okafor stepped forward. Perhaps our work provides insight into the solution as well. Humans have dealt with digestive pathogens throughout our evolutionary history. Your species lacks the regulatory precision of evolved systems, noted Medical Director Solvan dismissively. Your digestive processes are notoriously inefficient, yet remarkably adaptable, countered Dr. Wang. We've evolved alongside countless microorganisms, developing symbiotic relationships rather than perfect resistance. The historical data from Earth's medical archives projected across the chamber centuries of human experience with probiotic treatments, fermented foods, and microbial competition as defense mechanisms. Instead of perfect sterility, humans developed controlled microbial ecosystems, Dr. Okafor explained. Beneficial microorganisms occupy biological niches, preventing harmful ones from establishing themselves. Chef Reyes activated her personal display. The compounds in many traditional fermented foods, yogurt, kimchi, kombucha, kefir, create environments where specific beneficial microorganisms thrive while inhibiting others. The Security Council members exchanged skeptical glances, but High Chancellor Vexmore raised a quieting hand. Continue. Conventional approaches have failed us. Dr. Wang outlined their proposal, creating a cross-species probiotic treatment derived from beneficial microorganisms found in human fermented foods. These could be adapted to each species' specific biology while maintaining their fundamental competitive advantages against the pathogen. Most importantly, Dr. Okafor added, humans appear naturally resistant to multiple variants of the pathogen. Our generalist digestive systems process the disguised compounds before they can cause significant damage. You're suggesting humans could safely deliver these treatments, even in highly contaminated environments? Asked Security Director Krelnar. Chef Reyes nodded. We've already tested our own exposure levels. While not completely immune, we maintain functionality even with moderate pathogen presence. The emergency response proposal took shape rapidly. Teams of human volunteers would cultivate and deliver adapted probiotic treatments to affected worlds, working alongside local medical personnel. The treatments would create temporary microbial barriers within affected individuals' digestive systems, preventing the pathogen from establishing itself while conventional immune responses were developed. The observation deck of the Confederation flagship Adaptability curved in a perfect arc, offering an uninterrupted view of Earth's gleaming orbital shipyards. 5 years had transformed humanity's relationship with the galactic community, elevating Earth from curiosity to essential partner in interstellar civilization. High Science Director Shrila stood beside Admiral Sophia Reyes, their unlikely friendship a personal reflection of the broader changes sweeping through Confederation society. They watched as maintenance drones completed final calibrations on the revolutionary vessel's external sensor array. When my research team first documented human digestive capabilities, Shrila reminisced, we classified it as a primitive evolutionary holdover, inefficient and unnecessarily complex compared to our specialized systems. Admiral Reyes smiled. An understandable conclusion from a civilization that had mastered protein synthesis and nutritional engineering before discovering interstellar travel. The adaptability represented a fundamental shift in Confederation design philosophy. Rather than creating perfectly optimized systems for specific conditions, the vessel incorporated deliberately flexible technologies inspired by human biological systems. Its life support could rapidly reconfigure atmospheric composition, gravity fields adjusted dynamically to different crew physiologies, and, most revolutionary, its nutritional systems operated on principles derived from the Universal Cookbook. The dedication ceremony begins in 20 minutes, noted Science Director Kai Wang as he joined them. The Confederation Council has arrived, along with representatives from 93 member worlds. Together, they made their way to the Grand Assembly Hall, where Education Chancellor Imani Okafor was already coordinating the final presentation details with her staff. The vast chamber had been designed to accommodate beings of wildly different physiologies while maintaining comfortable interspecies interaction, another innovation inspired by human architectural adaptability. High Chancellor Vexmore opened the ceremony with appropriate formality. Today marks not merely the commissioning of an exploration vessel, but the adoption of a new guiding principle for our civilization's future. The main display activated, showing the distinctive hexagonal classification system that had become the visual signature of the human contribution to Confederation science. What began as an emergency solution aboard the Harmonic Discovery had evolved into the foundation of the adaptability doctrine, now taught at every Confederation academy. For 10,000 years, the High Chancellor continued, our approach to space exploration prioritized specialization and optimization. We engineered perfect solutions for known conditions, yet the universe continually presented us with unknown conditions that rendered our perfect solutions obsolete. The display shifted to show the critical moments from the past 5 years. The culinary innovations aboard the Harmonic Discovery, the successful Missouri negotiations, the establishment of the Interspecies Culinary Institute, and, most significantly, the human-led response to the metabolic pathogen crisis that had threatened dozens of worlds. Our human colleagues have demonstrated a fundamentally different approach, Vex Moore acknowledged. Rather than perfect specialization, they evolved to prioritize adaptation. This seemingly primitive characteristic has proven remarkably suited to the fundamental challenge of space exploration. The universe does not adapt to explorers. Explorers must adapt to the universe. Admiral Reyes stepped forward to deliver the keynote address. 5 years earlier, she had been a chef experimenting with emergency rations. Now she stood as the designated commander of the Confederation's most advanced vessel.